Well, we hear it from people all of the time. With a vaccine, getting COVID is just like the flu. But a first of its kind large study just released found that COVID can lead to long-term damage in the heart, even if you didn't have a severe case of it. Eyewitness News reporter Jeremy Baker took a look at the study and what it could mean for your health.
This is the first large study to look at cardiovascular outcomes in patients with COVID 1 year after their diagnosis, and the results were disturbing.
I think we have a lot of work ahead of us in terms of cardiac problems that we're going to probably see, that we can expect to see in the near future.
Researchers took data from Veterans Affairs. They looked at 11 million health records and found 154,000 of those who had contracted COVID between March of 2020 and January of 2021 and survived for at least 1 month afterwards. They found there was an increased risk of 20 different heart and blood vessel maladies in those who had COVID compared to those who didn't.
People die from cardiovascular complications of influenza. But it's very clear that with COVID, the risks are much greater.
COVID raised the risk of all ailments studied, including heart attacks, heart failure, cardiac arrest, arrhythmias, pulmonary embolisms, and deep vein thrombosis.
The sicker you were from COVID, the greater your chances were of having these cardiovascular conditions that were seen.
Even if you didn't have severe symptoms, just mild symptoms like this guy, or were asymptomatic like 40% of the cases, you too could still end up with an increased risk of heart maladies. But when should you see a doctor?
If they're having fatigue more than usual, if they're not able to carry on their usual activity, if they're having things like palpitations or chest pain, shortness of breath, with minimal activity or with strenuous activity, they need to go get that checked.
Both doctors say we have a long way to go before we know all the real long-term effects of COVID. Jeremy Baker, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.
Pfizer's authorization request for its vaccine for young children is being delayed by the FDA. Pfizer had submitted the request for emergency authorization at the beginning of the month for children 6 months to 5 years old. But the FDA says while the data supported the safety of the vaccines, it showed disappointing effectiveness. The agency says it needs to see data from an ongoing trial of a third dose in younger kids before they move forward with emergency authorization.